Good evening, everybody. My name's Steve Waite. I'm the CEO of the Business Centre, and I'd like to welcome you to the Business Fusion event. The Business Fusion event is brought by the New South Wales Government's Service New South Wales Business Connect program, where you can get free, independent, experienced business advice. You can attend workshops, access online tools, and be part of a community learning to start a business, grow a business, adapt a business, sustain a business. And we have a guest tonight with us who's going to share a bit of an insight on her business journey, and the title we've given the event tonight is Taking Flight, Launching Your Drone Business from the Ground Up. And it features Jackie Dujmovic, a finalist in the New South Wales Businesswoman of the Year Awards, who is going to tell us about her startup story and the potential of drones to transform people's lives. So Jackie approached the Business Centre about 8 years ago, and we began a conversation at that time about starting a drone business. But prior to that, Jackie and Mark had worked in the marine industry and in super yachts overseas in Europe and around the world, and they found themselves at a point in their personal and professional journey where they wanted to begin a business, and that's where that story began, and that's where we first met. And always kept a keen eye on what you've achieved since that time. And one of the things we're also going to address tonight is that you are working in an industry that's predominantly associated probably with males, being pilots and engineering and technology, and you're going to share a little bit of that part about your journey as well. But before that, can you maybe share with me and with the audience a little bit about yourself, your family, and also what did you do before Hover UAV?
Yeah, so we started Hover 8 years ago, and it was out at Soldiers Point in the Bay, and we had just moved back from just moved back from overseas, where I'd spent 12 years at sea. So we had been travelling the world on super yachts. Mark was a captain, and I was doing everything from, engineering, cooking, through to navigational watches over that time. But at that time, I was 7 months pregnant, and it was the time that I couldn't go back to sea. So we moved back to Australia, where we thought, you know what, we've got to come up with a new
livelihood.
New livelihood. So that's when we said, let's come up with some ideas. So I did a few business plans, one being the Whibbit. And I don't know if you know what the Whibbit is, but those inflatable jumping castles on the water? I thought that would be a great idea to start with a business, so I did that. And then I'd also seen what drones could be done. In my last few years at sea, we were travelling through the South Pacific, and you could never really see where you're going, and I thought, drones could really penetrate through the water. I also at that same time had a really good friend die in Alaska, so he fell overboard, and at that time he couldn't be saved, and he was sort of 25 years old, and at that time we kept thinking, drones could really be used to save lives. So did the business plan for drones, and that won out.
Now, let's step a bit further from there and look at that early embryonic stage when you kind of put rubber on the road and you arrived at the Business Centre, and we had that initial discussion about drones. Because I think one of the things I shared with you at that time was I think you were the third or fourth person that had come in to see me to speak about starting a drone business. So we started to drill down on that a little bit, and we ended up discovering some other possibilities. You want to take us through that story where you went from sort of a standardised, normal idea for drones to where you ended up, and then how that eventuated to where you are now?
Yeah, exactly. So I did my drone licence, and we thought, drones can be used for mapping, surveying, real estate, photography, filming. And I'm like, we can do everything. We're now expert surveyors. We're now expert in the construction industry. So we developed a website that showed everything in the world that drones could do. And that was our services. Met Steve, and he's like, right, what do you do? And I said, we do everything. We just do it with drones. And he's like, right. And he started talking to us, and then I remember him going, you've just smiled, you talked about maritime, and you've just both told me about your backgrounds. You need to focus on your strengths. You need to define what you do. You don't need to do everything. You need to be the best at something. So we went away, and my great website that said that we could do everything, then started to focus on, well, why don't we become the maritime and conservation experts in the drone industry? So we started adapting our website. You know, I live out in Port Stephens, so let's go get some footage of some sharks and, you know, all this different stuff. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from the Department of Regional New South Wales, which was the DPI at the time, saying, I see you're the experts in maritime shark surveillance. Yeah, of course we've got like really extensive experience in that. Great, do you want to run our shark trials? So that was the first meeting we defined what we do. Second meeting, sitting at Port Stephens, I'm like, I've got this opportunity, Steve, to, you know, go for this contract. They're going to do 5 trials from Wollongong up to Byron Bay. Yeah. Maybe we should do the one at Redhead Beach. Yeah, no, maybe we can't do it. Steve's like, what do you mean? You're going for that and you're going for all 5? And I'm like, I don't know about this. And so we developed that, and we actually ended up winning a couple of the beaches and sort of, you know, our very first government contract only a few months after starting the business.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I really recognised that both you and Mark had done was that you planned realistically for what it was you wanted to achieve. And we had a conversation last night that at the same time a whole group of other startups, for want of a better term, in the drone industry began as well. Can you just tell me a bit about what happened to them as a result of their methodology and their approach compared to yours?
We decided to grow organically. We knew that we knew this was a long-term game. We knew drones were sort of going, I mean, we could see the potential, but we knew it was not going to go straight up. There was too many regulatory burdens. The technology still wasn't quite there, public acceptance and things like that. Where we found a lot of companies, you know, started and then they go, you know, we need investors. We're going to, you know, give parts of our business out and, you know, take on millions and millions of dollars. And they sort of got this false reality at the time. So, you know, it was really daunting for me to go to events and I'm like, wow, you know, they've got millions of dollars, look at them, you know, they've got $1 million marketing budget and everything like that. And that's where I think was different. But I think about 60% of the companies that we started with at the time in this space no longer exist. They just got this false like security and they could not develop how to actually build a net profit. Yeah. Where I'd given myself sort of 6 months, I sort of said, look, you know what, I actually had a 6-week-old baby when I started the company, so I'm like, well, I'm going to take 6 weeks maternity leave anyways, 6 months. So, you know what, I've got to build the business up over 6 months, and if I can't pay myself, then maybe I'll reconsider something else. Yeah,
I do recall you guys were quite grounded and quite realistic about your projections, and I think that stood you in good stead. The other thing I want to just move on to now, before we get on to talking about, you know, you as a woman working in this industry, is to ask a little bit about what is happening in drone technology now. You know, when we spoke again a couple of weeks ago about where we might take this conversation, you see, it's not a drone business anymore, is it? It's much more than that. And your latest iteration of a business is a bringing of that together. So what's happening nationally and internationally with your business around drones and drone technology?
It's just expanding, and I think, as I said, technology is advancing. Regulations are advancing. You know, companies are now accepting. So it's actually just looking at ways now we can incorporate it to every part of our lives. Thinking outside the box is still really important. I was just telling Steve last night, one of the quickest growing drone companies in Australia is actually a manufacturer out of Canberra, and they've developed cardboard flat pack drones. And they're one of the fastest, as I said, growing drone companies in Australia. They're actually, you know, using them for military purposes, and they will use it for some civilian purposes, but with the Ukraine war, they're sort of going over there and they're getting medical supplies out to people really quickly, and, you know, they can be flat packed down, they can carry them out, then they can put them together and then launch them as well. You would never have
thought this was probably possible.
No, I wouldn't have thought that.
Eight years ago.
The thing, and it's being adaptable and changed. Look, if I'd thought I was doing half the things that I think 9.5 years ago, I didn't even know what a drone was. And then most of the applications that we're doing now, I still didn't understand. Like, I didn't know that they were going to be here.
Now, you sit on some industry boards, and as I said, you've been working in this industry, which I'm presuming is quite heavily male-dominated. What has been your journey, and I know you've got a particular passion for, as a role model for young women coming into the industry. What has been some of the challenges, and what has it been like being a woman in a business in this industry?
Yeah, I think when I first started, I think I might have been the first female remote pilot. There was only sort of a handful. We got to now 10% females within the industry, which is really good compared to general aviation. I think they're sitting at about 6 or 7%. We need more staff and we need more females. And I know we're not, like, I know all engineering, mining, they're all feeling the same. It was hard. Yeah, there was definitely times where you'd go into a room, especially early on, and there'd be only males. You'd be sitting there, and then, you know what, I might get asked to be speak or something, and then you'd hear them going, "Oh, you're the token female," or and it makes you feel terrible. And then, you know, it took me about probably a few years, and I'm like, "All right, if you were asked to talk, what would you talk about? What do you actually do?" And so you'd throw it back to them, but it definitely is really hard and daunting. So I end up starting to join a lot of the boards. So I sit on, you know, the Association for Uncrewed Systems and Safe Skies and things like that to try to help make change and get involved in sometimes when there's conferences to say, hey, you know what, like, how do we make it an inclusive environment so people can come and we can hear their stories, and then you can get more and more role models as well. Yeah.
Now, another part of your business that we were talking about last night, which I found stunning, is that you were saying 40% of your business is in Australia and 60% of your business is international?
Is that reverse? So I think 60% still in Australia, but I'd probably say by the end of the year it could be opposite.
Yeah.
We've, 40%.
So where is that? Where is that international
At the moment, we do a lot of work out in New Zealand, but we're helping a lot of our loyal clients here. We've worked with them. You know, one of them's Dendra. They're out of Singleton, and they've been using drones to seed and rejuvenate mine sites around the world. So companies like that, we've actually been able to grow together. So, you know, we've learnt their processes and their procedures, and so as they move through to the UK, into the UAE and like Saudi Arabia and things like that, we've been able to grow with them and sort of learn all those processes and then pick up new clients internationally as well, which has been great.
So before we move on to sort of our last discussion point about the future, what is your business model now? What sort of people have you got? How do you employ people? What sites have you got? How do you operate?
My people are my biggest and best asset. So I look after them. We encourage each other. We've got so many diverse backgrounds. We've got, you know, people from military backgrounds. You know, actually one of the girls who manages all our emerging aviation, she was let go during COVID. She was a Virgin pilot at the time. And I thought, you know, at the end of COVID, she's done 2.5 years with me and she's like my favourite staff member. And yeah, she's decided never to go back. She just loves this new emerging side. So we've got lots of really diverse team. We've got quite a flexible work environment. So, you know, we're sort of family friendly. They know that I usually leave and pick up, like if I'm not travelling, pick up the kids from school every day. The same with them. They, you know, there's some days where they can work from home. But I do like them to come to the office because I think that like camaraderie and, you know, that interaction's really good, and everything we're doing is quite new, so we all need to learn from each other as well.
Now, you began your business in New South Wales, so we'll claim you as a state of origin, but you did eventually relocate the business to the Gold Coast? And what was your rationale for that?
That was purely personal. I actually had a lot of family support up there, and I think the business was growing. Like I had, you know, startup pains, like a lot of you know, when you're sort of going from, you know, just a handful or less than 5 staff and you need to jump up to 15 or 20, it's just so much is going on. I knew I had to put the hard yards in, and I had little kids sort of not even at school, or they were just starting school. So, you know, with grandparents and cousins and different things around, we moved. And also the schooling system for me at the time, I think it just suited one of my child who needed a little bit special assistance. There was a different school that he needed to go to. But from business-wise, it wasn't...
A smooth transition.
Yeah, it was a smooth transition because we had everything sort of remotely.
Great. Now, we said we'd talk to this one because people always want to talk to this when you talk about drones. What's the exciting future? You know, the Jetsons, someone's going to... What's coming? What's up next? What are you finding amazing that's going to happen, or something that you think you could share with us?
Drones are just going to become part of our everyday lives. So We just need to all learn to somehow accept it, which means this is what I actually say to other businesses that do what I do. It's all about educating everyone, like what the program. So we're going to see drone delivery further expand. There's actually, I mean, we've had Google here for 6.5 years they've now been operating, but we've got 2 other large drone delivery companies that are about to launch into Australia as well. We're going to see larger uncrewed vehicles. We're going to see, like, you know, big aeroplanes still that are going to be uncrewed, doing cargo around the country. And then we will sort of, I'm predicting in about 5 years remotely, and then probably moving to more the Olympics in the Gold Coast, they'll be the flying cars or flying taxis, as they like to confirm. I did just head over to the States and I did sit in a few of them, and they're quite relaxing, and I can't wait. I've already put my hand up to be one of the first on there.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I want us to put our hands together for Jackie and appreciation of her time with us here at this event tonight. Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
And I'd like to close the event and encourage people to reach out if you want to start a business, if you've got a business, you want to grow or adapt your business, come to Service New South Wales Business Connect program, and you can get that advice, you can get that support, you can attend workshops, you can get a whole lot of resources, and it's been a wonderful program. And I think it's an example of how at the beginning, the embryonic stages, you've got someone to go with you on that journey and you don't have to be alone. So thank you and good night, and that's us for now.